is scooped and lifted way out of here into left. Bang! Starts the World Series for Chris Taylor. Here is a 3-2 now. He struck him out. Fooled him on a pitch down and away. Strikeout number 11. High fly ball into left. Off the bat of Turner. At the wall. It's gone. Turner makes it 3-1 Dodgers in game one.
And game one goes to the home team. Robin, did you know that going into Tuesday night, Clayton Kershaw was 6-7 with a 4.4 ERA in the postseason for his career? Well, game one, he struck out 11, allowing just 3 hits, including a solo home run over 7 innings. Now, for his postseason career, where he has the reputation as an underachiever, Kershaw has now matched Dodger greats like Sandy Koufax.
Heard of that guy before.
And Fernando Valenzuela with 4 starts of at least 7 innings, allowing at most 1 run. So has Kershaw exercised these postseason demons?
I think as far as being labeled a choker or what have you, he certainly has. He may have a little bit of work to do to be considered clutch and rising to the occasion, and even better than he is in the regular season, which is almost impossible to do. Because really, what is clutch? It's being as good as you are in the high leverage situations. You look at Derek Jeter's postseason career compared to his regular season career, it's the same. Kershaw was great last night. You expect him to be great going forward. The one concern is he's given up a lot of home runs in this postseason. He has allowed 8 earned runs on 7 home runs, and that could be problematic when you go to Houston, which is a much more homer-friendly ballpark.
Yeah, it looks like he could start game 5 if the series goes that long, and I'm hoping that the series does go that long. I think you look inside of his game, so to speak, and you can find places where he is making up for those things he was criticized for earlier on in his postseason career. How about this? In his 6th playoff 7th inning. So you know that 7th inning has always been very, very difficult for Kershaw. He's pitched in 6 of them in his postseason career. His ERA before yesterday, 25.5. I mean, that's really where guys were starting to get to him. And of course, he goes into scoreless 7th inning last night. And I think those kinds of small victories, if we start pulling those out a little bit, as opposed to just looking at the wins and stuff like that, I think you're going to see that Kershaw is being very focused on trying to right the wrongs of the past.
Yeah, and when you go into the games, the question is no longer going to be, does Kershaw need to prove himself in that regard, which in itself takes a little bit of the pressure off. Now, the question going forward in this series, because we're going to see Justin Verlander, who would you rather see win a ring, Verlander or Kershaw?
I guess the obvious answer is Verlander, because he's older, because he's had 2 trips previously to the World Series with the Detroit Tigers that ended in heartbreak. So you want to say Verlander, but I actually have to go Kershaw on this. I feel like the narrative has gotten so big around Kershaw and his postseason, and it's almost, I think, gotten to a place where it's a little jump the shark and maybe become a little bit overblown about just how bad he actually has been. And so for him, I think it's actually most necessary for him to add to all of the accolades that he has had in his career. All that's missing is the ring, and you get the feeling that if he adds 1, the floodgates open for him.
Yeah, it's not an easy answer, right? Because it's not like either one of these guys is imminently dislikable or something along those lines. But you mentioned Kershaw. What was the nickname? Peyton Kershaw. And it is very analogous to Peyton Manning, who did struggle relative to his greatness in the postseason, but it got to a point where that was overblown. Same thing has happened to Kershaw. Peyton Manning did enough where that's not really a part of his legacy or conversation. And the same thing would go for Kershaw. So if you're rooting for overall greatness, you're probably rooting for Kershaw because he has the chance to cement himself to the highest levels of the hierarchy. Now we know the reason behind the odd shooting form transformation that has made #1 pick Markelle Fultz's highlights go viral for the wrong reason. Well, at least we think we do. Fultz's agent initially said his client had fluid drain from his shoulder, causing Fultz to struggle to raise his arms above his head to shoot. He then revised that to say he actually had a cortisone shot, which would be adding fluid, not draining it. Either way, Fultz has tried to tough it out for his Sixers teammates, but Maggie, Should he really be on the court until his shoulder is fully healthy?
No, and I'm surprised that the Sixers would even entertain this, considering they have dealt with this with their 2 high draft picks, most recently in Ben Simmons and also Joel Embiid. Simmons missed his draft year, Embiid missed his draft year, and actually some more. And I think they're showing now and proving that it was absolutely worth it. Look at Ben Simmons. He looks like he's a league changer, not just a game changer for the 76ers. And Embiid could be one of the most important players for the next 10 years in this league. So I don't understand why you would have Fultz out there, especially with the 76ers. It's really fun to talk about them being a postseason team and could they possibly take down a top seed if they get into the postseason. But let's be honest, that really is still not the goal for the 76ers. If you really are trusting the process, you're looking at this, I think, 2 years or even 3 years down the line.
The way Simmons and Embiid have played, it's almost to the point where, of course, you want Fultz to turn out, but you have to feel pretty good about your situation regardless of Fultz being on the roster if you're a Sixers fan. My default option is to err on the side of guys getting fully healthy before they're back out there. You know, you don't want them to re-injure themselves. And, of course, in Fultz's case, you don't want it to affect his confidence. You know, the yips, I guess you could call it, for shooting. There is a little bit of a difference between comparing him and Simmons and Embiid, however, because those guys were dealing with lower extremity issues and he's dealing with an upper extremity issue. And there is a little bit of a difference as far as your worry about that being a long-term thing.
Meanwhile, we're seeing varying reports about whether a deal is signed, but it is being reported that Colin Kaepernick will add the title of author to his list of accomplishments. Now, if Kaepernick writes a memoir, Robin, what details would you want him to tell you about in the book? You
know what really interests me is the possible internal journey he's gone through. From when he initially took this stance, because we know why he took the stance and decided to kneel. But it seems as if he has taken on a bit of a responsibility to be a leading figure. And if you look at some of his comments right after the initial stance, of course, people like to point to the socks and the Castro shirt and, you know, saying he didn't vote, various things like that. I want to know from that point to now if he did a little internal examination and realized, wow, I've become an important figure. I've become someone that people are looking up to or people are listening to. And if that changed his perspective on some things and made him even more of someone to follow in this case.
For me, I want to know what his reaction was when President Trump basically called all players who take any SOBs. I'd like to have been a fly on the wall there. I mean, I think like a lot of people, it was probably a bit of shock. But beyond that, I mean, what does it feel like to hear the president calling you out in that way? I also would like to know what happened this offseason. You know, how close did he think he actually did get to signing with a team? What happened with the Seahawks? Did he think that they were bringing him in and talking to him because they actually wanted to potentially give him a backup job, or were they doing it maybe to appease the Michael Bennetts on their team and guys who they know were in great support of Colin Kaepernick? I'd like to know from his vantage point, because he has not spoken publicly about his NFL dealings in the offseason, and I'm just curious about whether teams more reached out, maybe they're just not being public about it, or what he thinks happened and why he's not playing right now.
And was there a moment when he thought, it is for sure I am being colluded against it and being held out of the NFL? Meanwhile, LeBron James officially got the start at point guard last night for the first time since February of 2005. He finished the Cavs win over the Bulls with 34 points on 13 of 20 shooting and 13 assists, just 2 turnovers. After the game, said changing positions on the floor comes easy to him.
Ever since I was a kid, I've always learned every position on the floor. When I started playing ball, for some odd reason, I could learn every single position on the floor all at one time. Point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. And know all the plays, what they're doing, and what's the reasons.
So is there a position LeBron wouldn't be the best in the league at?
This absolutely kills me. This is an exercise in futility. To talk about LeBron James playing one position is just a road that I don't care to go down, because I don't think it gets us anywhere in terms of a conversation. Yes, he's a great point guard. Yes, he can play center. Yes, he can play every position on the floor, because positions don't matter. The only time I think they actually matter is for the all-star voting, because you can only have so many guards and forwards, and that's it. LeBron James has always been one of the most, if not the most versatile player that is in the league right now. He can do it all. Would he be the best at each position? Who knows? Who cares? Positions don't even matter.
It is a bit of a savage hypocrisy that we talk about the revolution of basketball into positionless era and then go and harp on who's the best at each position. You know, you have multiple ball handlers on a team. All the players on the wing are supposed to be interchangeable to be a great team. But can I do this for the fun of it?
Sure.
All right. LeBron would be the best point guard in the league. We've already seen that. His best positions are point guard and power forward. He's really a power point guard. I think he could actually be the best center in the league if you're using Draymond Green as an example in the era of small ball. Small forward was the position he came into the league at. That speaks for itself. The one position, maybe if we're speaking traditionally, he wouldn't be the best at is shooting guard because he's not quick enough to guard those perimeter players anymore, and he's not a good enough shooter to play off the ball exclusively. So there's the answer.
Okay, that is the answer. But he can play point guard, but he's not going to be guarding point guards because we know he can't do that. He could be playing center, but he's probably not going to be guarding centers. Maybe, but probably not.
He's pretty big.
He's pretty big. But that's why this is just so frustrating in some points, because even if he is going to be offensively a point guard, he's never defensively going to be a point guard. So is that the full position? You tell me, Facebook Live. Everyone out there, keep commenting. We see you out there.
Just put LeBron on the floor and tip the ball up. Meanwhile,
roll the balls out.
We know Vernon Davis plays tight end.
Yep.
I had a chance to talk to the two-time Pro Bowler about his resurgence in Washington and his team's loss to the Eagles on Monday night. I'd now like to welcome in Washington tight end Vernon Davis. He's here to promote Cheetos and curling. We'll get to that in just a second. But first, Vernon, I graduated from Maryland in 2004, right when your breakout started there. Who's a more famous Terp, me or you?
It might be you.
I don't know about that, man. I ain't out there making plays still in the NFL. Now, you guys played on Monday Night Football. The Eagles have impressed a lot of people. Just how good are the Eagles?
The Eagles are really good. They do a lot of things well. Offensively, we know about their quarterback, Wentz. He's phenomenal, and he's a young guy. He's only getting better. I'm excited about his future. They did a great job. They beat us. I mean, we're not going to win every game, but we try our best to on any given Sunday, and we just have to go on and continue to keep getting better.
Do you think you can get to the level the Eagles are currently at?
I strongly believe that we're already there. I think we're there. We just have to transfer what we do in practice onto the field on Sundays or Mondays whenever we play and take it one game at a time and just stay together.
Now, you individually have 58 career touchdowns, but only 2 between 2014 and 2015. You really seem to be thriving again now, though, averaging more yards per catch than any tight end in the NFL. What changed between those years and now again?
Your career is like life. It's up and down. It's a roller coaster. Sometimes one year can be this way. The next year can be that way. It's just, I guess it's supposed to be that way. Everything that's supposed to happen for you will happen. I'm a strong believer in that. And it's just good being here, playing for a team that I rooted for as a kid.
Speaking of your realm, you were sort of on the forefront of the modern day tight end. I remember the tight end being a blocker and maybe run a 6-yard button hook or something along those lines. And then all of a sudden, the position became such a weapon, big, fast, strong guys catching long passes out in the open field. But generally that position doesn't lend itself to avoiding contact so much. Do you think sometimes guys at your position are being injured because they are so big, fast, and strong?
I feel like injuries occur when you don't properly take care of yourself. I feel like stretching is one of the biggest components there is when it comes to staying healthy. A lot of athletes don't really take advantage of that, but I feel like we should all take advantage of that and stretch as much as possible.
Now, I'm assuming he stretches. Why do you believe that Jordan Reed has had so much trouble staying on the field?
I'm not sure. It could be several different reasons. I'm not sure, but Jordan Reed, he's, like I said, he's huge on taking care of his body. He eats well, and he's doing the best that he can to help us win games. And I strongly believe that he'll continue to keep getting better and better when it comes to staying healthy and staying active on the field.
When you talk about timing, you've been in a lot of different places in your career, played with Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick, a bit with Peyton Manning. How does Kirk Cousins compare to the quarterbacks you've played with?
Kirk Cousins has all those qualities that you need to have, that you want in a quarterback. He's humble. He's always encouraging guys, and he steps up when he needs to, especially in the huddle. He comes across as a quiet guy in the locker room, which is totally cool and fair. Peyton Manning was the same way. He was quiet in the locker room, but when these guys step out in the field, they take over. They stand out like a sore thumb. And Kirk Cousins has those values, and we really, really appreciate it, and it's an honor to have him as our quarterback.
Now, you're a curling connoisseur. Will you try to become a professional curler after your NFL career is over?
You know what? Everyone's asking that question. That's the big question, it seems like. I'm not sure. There's a possibility, maybe, but we'll see. We'll see.
Have you tried to introduce any of your teammates to curling? Anybody been particularly receptive or not receptive at all?
I did. I see a lot of guys playing shuffleboard in the locker room. So I went up to a group of the guys last year, and I was like, "Hey guys, you guys should come out on the ice and try curling. There's some similarities here. I think you guys will love it. You guys will have a great time on the ice." And they're like, "Yeah, I heard about that. Maybe I should do that." So I guess it's all if I can find a curling rink where these guys can actually get out there and it's close and nearby, maybe I can create one or something like that and have the guys come out. And I think I can get them to do it. Which
NFL players would make the best curlers?
The best curlers, I would have to say, I think Jordan Reed will be a great curler. I mean, he's so flexible, man. He's crafty. There's something about those basketball players, man. Those basketball players, they're really nimble. They can just, the way they move, I think he'll be really good at it.
Why Cheetos and curling? I wouldn't exactly think football and curling. Why Cheetos and curling?
So I believe Cheetos is using the platform of the NFL to bring more awareness to curling. They want to educate and motivate the fans out there to follow curling and get involved because it is a fantastic sport. It's just I feel like it's a little underappreciated when it comes to the game, but if we can rally behind Cheetos and jump on board and support curling, I think it will be fantastic. I'm elated to be a part of this partnership, and I look forward to it.
Vernon Davis, thanks for the time today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Who's the best? No. Who's the greatest? SI's new book ranks the all-time gridiron greats across a variety of categories. The greatest QB is a familiar face, and our most recent Super Bowl champion. The greatest running back plowed through defenders and social injustice. The greatest wide receiver still holds pretty much every receiving record. The greatest tight end is a man that redefined the position. The greatest offensive lineman was an 11-time All-Pro, while the greatest defensive lineman racked up 198 career sacks. The greatest linebacker struck fear into the hearts of quarterbacks everywhere. The greatest defensive back may be missing a finger, but he didn't have any holes in his game. The greatest coach of all time is the man the Super Bowl trophy is named after. The greatest team, Super Bowl shuffled into our hearts, while keeping opponents out of the end zone. With 6 rings, the greatest franchise is the Pittsburgh Steelers. The greatest play knocked off the undefeated Patriots in Super Bowl 42. The greatest game was the first matchup decided by sudden death overtime, the 1958 Colts-Giants NFL Championship. Finally, the greatest stadium. It may be the coldest, but the frozen tundra easily leapt into the top spot.
Far be it from us to disagree here,
No.
but
we will.
I don't know if you can have a best defensive back without Deion Sanders, the impact on and off the field. And the 1958 NFL Championship game is the best game ever. I have a couple of problems. One, I didn't see it. And two, I refuse stubbornly to believe that any game played in 1958 could be better than a game played in the 2000s. They had the Tyree catch. That Patriots-Giants Super Bowl was the best to me. It had the greatest play ever. The Patriots were looking to be undefeated. Just everything involved in that one.
Robin, you weren't at the 1958 title game. It was magic. I wasn't there either, obviously, but that was a very influential game more than just the actual final score and the interest in the game. My slight tweaks I would make is that while Vince Lombardi, obviously the immortal coach, winning 5 championships, I actually think the greatest coach ever is Bill Belichick. He matches Lombardi for the rings. He also won 2 as an assistant with the Giants. It's the innovation, which I know Lombardi had also, but I feel like Belichick, over his 2-decade career where he has coached just his 18th season for the Patriots, is still making adjustments and being so just crafty, I think is probably the best word here.
That's a pun too.
And he's doing, Robert Kraft, and he's doing it in a time where information is far more available. The competition, I think, is just much stiffer. Obviously, there's twice as many teams in the league, all of that stuff. And then I understand also the 1985 Bears, widely agreed upon as the greatest team of all time. I'm not going to nitpick here, even though maybe you have 2 undefeated teams, regular season undefeated, the 72 Dolphins, and also the 16-0 Patriots from 2007 might want a hat tip there. But I also think that the Dallas Cowboys, the ones from 92-93, that could be the best team ever. You had Troy Aikman, one of his best seasons of all time, over 3,400 yards passing. Emmitt Smith's second best rushing season of his career, more than 2,000 yards from scrimmage, a total of 19 touchdowns. Michael Irvin in his prime, even Jay Novacek was a first-team All-Pro that season. 6 Cowboys named to the Pro Bowl, and then, of course, they beat the Bills stylishly 52-17, scoring 21 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, that was an incredible team.
As someone who rooted against that team as a kid, I totally agree with you. They were awesome. Same thing goes for Bill Belichick. I don't think you have to like the guy to just totally give it up for the longevity and really the ingenuity.
And, you know, he plays a little fast and loose with the rules, but, you know, as people like to say, if he ain't cheating, he ain't trying. We do see you out there on Facebook Live. Thank you so much for commenting. You were just talking to Vernon Davis, who's an ambassador and an honorary captain for the U.S. curling team. Daryl tweets in, what the hell is curling?
I kind of wanted to ask it too, but I felt like I would look unprepared if I did so.
Yeah, no, you had to go watch tons of curling videos on YouTube, and we suggest that you do too, Daryl, but thanks so much for
Now
tuning
let's
in.
turn to the story of Rob Jones, a Marine veteran who's in the midst of running 31 marathons in 31 days in 31 different cities. Impressive, right? Well, get this. Jones is also a double amputee, and his journey isn't just for his own healing, but also for other wounded vets.
He was always kind of small and skinny and just happy.
Pretty quiet, I'd say. He kept to himself, but he was also very athletic.
He was just an easygoing kid.
As a teenager, he was a really good student.
Whatever he got himself into, he wanted to make sure he did the best at it.
He helped a lot on the farm, so he was hardworking and spent a lot of time outside too.
A lead from the front type Marine who wanted to take on any task, anything that was thrown our company's way.
Rob's a very unique individual, and I knew that from the first moment I met him.
On July 22nd, 2010, I was doing my job. I was trying to find an IED, and I was hit by the IED, and that resulted in double above-knee amputations of both my legs.
Rob, who identified threats to his due west, started to maneuver and confront those threats. And in that process, he stepped on an improvised explosive device.
After I got hit, I was unconscious for maybe 20 seconds or so, and I woke up and all I could hear was my own screaming. It was interesting because my body, I wasn't telling my body to scream. It was just doing it on its own. Like it had, my conscious and my subconscious had totally disconnected from each other, and my body was just doing something, and maybe my conscious mind was kind of pulled back in order to maybe save itself from damage or something.
So when I first heard about Robbie's injury, it was from 2 Marines knocking on the door, which no mother with a son overseas wants to see. But I was so relieved to hear that it was just an injury.
I was glad he was alive. because you always think the worst when you get that phone call. And then I just wondered what his life was going to be like.
There were other casualties in that fight, but I got to tell you, Rob's heroics and courage on that day, once he saw the threat, he didn't hesitate, and he was so darn focused on the mission at hand and advancing, and his fellow Marines, he took the front role and then ended up getting wounded in the process.
First things first, we gotta design a workout program to get on our feet again.
I kind of skipped all the doubting myself and being depressed and feeling sorry for myself. I just went straight to trying to achieve what I've always wanted to achieve, which is to have a meaningful life. So pretty quickly, I looked into different sports that I could participate in, and I found out about rowing, and I found out that it was in the Paralympics.
And it just worked out. There was a group doing rowing and helping the disabled veterans with rowing, and he hooked up with them, and they hooked him up with Oksana, who was his partner. She was also a double amputee.
We trained for 9 or 10 months, and we went to London and we competed in the mixed double sculls in the Paralympics, and we got a bronze medal there.
Oh, just so proud. Proud for him, happy for him and her, because they'd worked so hard. And to have it come to that conclusion was awesome. Of course, they could have been gold, but I think bronze was good.
I think what the rowing did was it gave me a goal that I could reach for. One of the big milestones when you're in recovery is relearning how to run. It was so difficult, and it's something that I probably shouldn't really be all that good at, but I wanted to be good at it because I shouldn't be good at it. So I decided my next challenge could be something running related because I kind of had a talent for it.
Started off with, oh, these are quite good cities, maybe these would be good places to go run, and then linking them together and going, oh, this would be a good route around the country going from these cities to these cities.
I think my first thought was this is going to be a really difficult one. Trying to do 31 of these in 31 days.
It's not impossible, it's improbable.
It's amazing.
It's incredible to me.
Well, I want to do 31 marathons in 31 days in 31 different cities because I want to be an example for veterans and civilians to follow.
I don't have any doubt that Rob will be able to finish as long as everything goes according to plan.
Just the fact that he picked 31 marathons instead of like 30 just says that he's gonna pick the hardest way to possibly do something.
I think, yes, it is a little bit crazy.
31 days is naturally harder than 28 days, so I picked the harder route.
Setting this thing up and finishing with a big hurrah on Veterans Day in our nation's capital is just very sobering, and I just can't wait to be out there with him.
And I think he's just a great role model for people, whether you're in the military or a civilian.
He's a very caring, loving person, as well as determined.
The thing that makes him stand out so much and makes him able to do all these crazy things that people say are impossible is that Rob isn't just overcoming adversity and then is done with it. His version of overcoming adversity is, I'm going to take that adversity and I'm going to take those skills that I used to overcome this awful thing that's happened in my life, and I'm going to use those skills to make myself better every single day.
I want to show veterans, civilians alike that when veterans come home from war, they can be injured in some way, but that doesn't mean that they're broken or that they are somehow incapable of reintegrating into society or being useful to society.